So, this is my theory on how our universe came to be and many other universes. And it all comes from black holes. This theory is called the black hole genesis theory, and it's abbreviated as BHGT. The whole question that this theory revolves around: where does matter go when it falls into a black hole? Now, most of you, simple minders, simple thinkers, think inside the box, and you say, oh, it just goes and it gets stored in there, it gets deleted, right? But obviously you can't destroy matter. Of course it gets torn apart, but it has to go somewhere, and it can't just stay there, because black holes eventually do die out. Okay, so the core idea, segment 2. BHGT says that every black hole is technically just a wormhole. It does rip matter apart, but it doesn't just get deleted. It goes somewhere. It goes to a white hole, right? White hole. And that white hole, you might have never heard of them. They're highly speculative. We haven't found one. We don't know they exist, right? But they're possible. Just the opposite of a black hole. Instead of pulling matter in, it pushes it out, right? So it's practically impossible to enter one. So that's the simple core idea: black hole, wormhole, white hole. That's the transfer of matter. So basically what I'm saying is, our universe had the Big Bang, right? Just infinitely dense point that just exploded, and after a couple, how old is our universe? I don't know, trillion years, our universe came to be. That is partially true, right? But what you have to understand is that what black holes and white holes have something called a singularity. A singularity, by definition, is the most dense point you can get to. That's a fact. And we can say the white hole in our universe was that infinitely dense point, and it exploded, and that's how it came to be. So a white hole is just the Big Bang of our universe, another universe, other universes. So something I have to tell you about black holes. When matter gets sucked into a black hole, eventually it'll get ripped apart. Ripped down to quarks and gluons. If you don't know what those are, if you have an atom, you have protons and neutrons in them. Protons and neutrons are made of quarks and gluons. That's what they are. So we can say that black holes, at the singularity, all it is quark, gluon, plasma. Atoms can't exist there, protons can't exist there. Only quark, gluon, plasma can. Guess the first matter that was ever in our universe was? It was quark, gluon, plasma. So that was sent from our parent universe's black hole, torn apart, came through the wormhole, then exploded from the white hole as quark, gluon, plasma. And we can see that with our universe. And, after plasma cools, it groups up into protons, neutrons. Those group up into atoms. And over time, we get atoms, stars, planets, galaxies. That's how our universe came to be. Segment 3. Angular momentum. black holes spin, and that's a fact. We know that. The white hole on the other end of that black hole inherits the spin from them. That's something I made up. I didn't make it up. It's just part of my theory. There are 3 things that define a black hole, that being mass, charge, spin. Spin is what gives our universe its spin, right? So this is for people who are intellectually intelligent. If angular momentum is conserved everywhere else in physics, why would it disappear going through a wormhole? Simple answer, it doesn't. Like I said, it's inherited the spin of the black hole. So what does that mean to all non-intellectually intelligent people? So basically that means that the white hole has a spin. That since our white hole has a spin, it doesn't spray matter that it pushes out evenly. So this circle is a white hole. And let's say it's spinning like that, right? That does not mean matter comes out from all sides. If you don't understand that, that doesn't mean matter comes out from all sides. That only means matter comes out from, well, it preferably comes out from the axis of the spin, right? So if you don't understand that, I want you to grab a tennis ball and wet it at a sink and then spin it on a table. Does the water come from everywhere off that tennis ball, or does it come from the axis of which that tennis ball spins? That's exactly how I found this out. I'm not even joking. Segment 4. The prediction. So when I was in the development of this theory, I basically said, if the white hole thing that I just thought of is true, then 3 things should align correctly. So I predicted them. 1, well, I predicted 2. 1, the CMB cold spot, and 2, the Great Attractor. That's what it's called. So I said, since the CMB cold spot is an area of our universe that has less matter and less radioactivity, then that means that that should be at the poles of our diagram. So since I told you about how matter only preferably comes out at the axis, we should say the CMB cold spot is up here or down here. These would have the same amount of matter in them. And I said the Great Attractor should be on the axis of which our thing spins, our white hole spins. So the Great Attractor would be at the axis or axes, right? So I should probably explain what the Great Attractor is. The Great Attractor is basically a cosmological structure that's so huge or dense that it's pulling our galaxy and all surrounding galaxies towards it. It's nothing to be afraid of. We won't reach it for like, I don't know, trillion years. So, but it exists. We know it exists. We can't see it because it's in, never mind. We just can't see it. But, when I was researching those, I found another anomaly the axis of evil. I did not name it that. Let's just get that covered. Some scientists did. But the axis of evil, so let's say you're a super high power telescope and you look at the night sky and you're like, why are there more stars in a line of the sky than there are over there and over there? That's the axis of evil. That's its preferred amount of radiation and matter that's in the sky. And a preferred amount of radiation and matter that's a line in the sky is the axis of our white hole. The axis of evil is the axis of our white hole. That's where all the matter goes. So that's one proof of evidence. 2, the CMB cold spot. So I was like, okay, so now that I know the axis of evil is where our white hole's axis is, right? Then if the line's up here, I should expect to see the CMB cold spot right over there. See how they're parallel, right? That's exactly what I saw. And I was like, okay, well, there's got to be some discrepancies. So I ran the calculations, right? And out of 360 degrees of angles, the CMB cold spot is only 8 degrees off from where I expected it to be, which was the perfect place where the pole would be, which is understandable. Could move over time, because let's assume that thing's been there for billions of years. Could have moved before humans came to live, right? And the third anomaly, the Great Attractor. Since I predicted it to be on the line, right? Because it's more matter, it's not less. And I found it was consistent with the line, it just wasn't precise enough to call it good evidence, but you know, it could move over trillions of years. And yeah, it wasn't precise enough, so you can ignore that evidence if you want, but it is near the line. It wasn't at a pole. It was definitely near the line. So let's recap. We have 3 anomalies and no explanation for each of them. And my theory just told you the explanation for them, the one that scientists haven't been able to. Let's move on. Segment 5. This is pretty deep into my theory. If you're not a fan of science, you can skip. Why the theory doesn't need cosmological inflation. Not financial, cosmological. Inflation is, let me define it, a theoretical patch invented, not by me, by some scientist, to explain 3 different problems with the Big Bang. That's all it is. The 3 problems are flatness, the horizon problem, and magnetic monopoles. So I'll explain each of them and how BHGT solves them individually. So the first problem, flatness. The universe's geometry is almost perfectly flat. It's not curved. That requires a lot of fine-tuning to accomplish in standard cosmology. So, I don't remember these answers at the top of my head, so that's why I wrote them down. BHGT uses something called LQC, which is loop quantum cosmology. It says that the quantum bounce naturally produces near flat initial conditions, so it doesn't need any fine-tuning, which means basically you could say that means that the universe is just flat innately. There's nothing that caused it to be flat, it's just flat. Problem 2, the horizon problem. So opposite sides of the CMB sky are the same temperature, but they were never in contact in standard cosmology, and light couldn't have traveled between them. Why is that? Well, we all know that all of our matter came from a parent black hole. So I say all that matter in the sky was in the same parent black hole before it came out. It all thermalized, reached the same temperature, while being pulled in through the accretion disk of a black hole, which is the stuff you see in the movies. That's not black. That's what I'm going to say. And compressed toward the singularity. It was already the same temperature before it exited the white hole. No need for casual contact afterward. That's my answer. Problem 3, magnetic monopoles. I'll describe what they are. So high energy physics says that we should be drowning in magnetic monopoles. They should be everywhere. They're exotic particles with only one singular magnetic pole. We've never found one. Standard inflation solves this by diluting them. That's the scientist answer. Dilute them, right? But I argue the matter coming through the white hole has a different thermal history. It's been processed through the black hole environment already, so the conditions that produce monopoles are different. Fewer get made. Any that do form could be dark matter candidates, which would explain why we haven't detected them. That's my answer. What did I just do? So, alright, segment 6. The big picture. Our universe is not the first universe. We know that. We have parent universes. Well, a parent universe, and a grandparent universe, and a great-grandparent universe. But we aren't the first. And our universe has more black holes than stars, right? You can fact check me on that. So we are the parent to more universes than stars in our universe. And that means that there's an infinite exponential chain of universes that just keep on extending and extending. We could have an almost near infinite amount of brother and sister universes, since if our universe has multiple black holes, why shouldn't our parents? And why shouldn't the universes we create have also a lot of black holes? We aren't alone. And also, to break it to you, since universes, most of their constants are based off of the black hole's angular momentum, charge, and mass, we can say that sometimes universes could fail to form before they started, right? So we could say sometimes that universes could be empty, or no planets could form and nothing would exist. Nothing alive could exist in there. So we got lucky. And you could go back all the way in time to the first universe. I don't have an explanation for that universe. I don't have an explanation for why anything exists. I'm just explaining what does exist right now. because a universe has to have a parent universe. So if the first universe didn't have a parent, because it's the first, then I don't know. You can fill in your own answer. Because obviously I can't go visit the first universe. The segment 7, the final segment, this is my conclusion. This theory is still definitely developing, and it is still in progress. It all stemmed from one thought I had in the shower about black holes, and I've been working on it since mid-9th grade, I'd say. There are still definitely a lot of things that I have to work on, because some things aren't, not right, or this works right now, but in a different situation it doesn't. But the math, most of the math definitely works out in physics. The 3 anomalies I talked about, axis of evil, cold spot, and great attractor, those were all found by different teams across the world. Not my team, scientists, right? I'm not affiliated with them. But my theory brought all those 3 things together in a one conscious explanation, and none of those teams had any explanations. So I've been working on it since mid-9th grade. It's not finished, and it's built. It's not finished. It's there, but I need to still do the minor stuff. So, core idea, black holes are not dead ends. So, me and you could die and then get absorbed into the sun when it explodes, and then Sagittarius A comes and sucks the sun up, and we could go into a different universe. We wouldn't be alive. Yeah, that's all I have on my theory. If you want the math and all the minor details and all the nerd stuff, I could make a video. It's just gonna be an hour long. I just wanted to simplify it down enough so I can make a video about it, because I'm pretty proud of it. Yeah, that's it. Bye.